In March of 1997, a mass suicide made headlines. Less than a month later, the people involved were mocked by both the media and the public. Characterized as kooks and fanatics, this group would continue to be the butt of jokes for more than 2 decades after their deaths. But how did they get to that point? This is the story of a group that pioneered recruitment in a digital age, quickly adapted to a changing world, and is hailed as one of the most notorious cults of the 20th century for a tragedy they're still ridiculed for. Let's dive into the history of Heaven's Gate. In 1970, music professor Marshall Applewhite left his job to emotional turmoil. Some dispute this claim, stating that Applewhite was actually fired for having an inappropriate relationship with a male student. After the death of his father the following year, he spent a period of time in a psychiatric institution he admitted himself to. Though whether he was severely depressed, hearing voices, or wanted to be cured of his homosexual desires is debated. Regardless of the circumstances surrounding his admittance to a psychiatric institution, it was here that he met Bonnie Nettles, a nurse. Their shared interests were in astrology, biblical prophecy, science fiction, and alternative spiritual exploration, and this brought them closer together. Discussion led to the determination that the Bible told of an extraterrestrial ship that would take people to the next level, where they could live as immortals. Nettles and Applewhite determined that they were divine messengers and needed to spread their message. Applewhite left his family, and he and Nettles traveled around the United States before settling in Colorado in the mid-70s with a group they called, simply, The Crew. This group was made up of recruits, people mostly from California and Oregon. What drew them to the cult is likely a combination of post-Vietnam apocalypticism and the similarities to the New Age movement that was popular at the time. Applewhite and Nettles had combined both Christianity and this New Age movement to capitalize on paranoia and the feeling of living in a corrupted world. They offered not only an option for escape, but for salvation as well. Nettles, who went by the name T, and Applewhite, called Doe, were considered the two, and they taught that an extraterrestrial spacecraft would take them to the kingdom of heaven, and that human bodies are merely containers that should be abandoned for a higher physical existence. At first, they and their followers believed in a biological metamorphosis, a process by which their bodies would transform into their extraterrestrial forms. But when Nettles died of cancer in 1985, many began to doubt this belief, including Applewhite himself. They then changed their belief, claiming that they needed to abandon their human bodies in order to transfer to their next level bodies. This wasn't enough. Membership had declined around the time Nettles died, and it only dwindled further. The anticipated transition had not occurred even after Nettles' death, and people were losing faith. It seemed to be the end of Heaven's Gate. It was not. Applewhite ended up moving the operation to Texas, where the group lived a quiet life to prepare for their eventual shift to a higher level. During this time, Applewhite clarified that his relationship with Nettles was neither romantic nor sexual, instead compelled by the desire to understand what had brought them together. It's likely that Applewhite had himself castrated during this time to commit to the non-sexual nature of the cult, forcing members to abstain because their bodies were, according to him, a vessel for an asexual soul. Some members, like Applewhite, underwent castration as well. In the 1990s, they moved to Southern California and began recruiting once more, this time using a different method, the internet. The group used the internet to make money. In fact, much of their income came from designing web pages under the name Higher Source, and to recruit new members. Some of it worked, and some of it didn't. Heaven's Gate didn't see much of an increase in membership, but it certainly did see an increase in income. In 1995, when the Hale-Bopp comet was discovered, Doe and the class, as the members were now called, believed that this was how the spacecraft would come to Earth to take them to the next level. The following year, they would rent a large house in Rancho Santa Fe, and this is where the end begins. Heaven's Gate was relatively unknown in 1996. Unlike similar groups, there were never any scandals involving Heaven's Gate. No private investigators to follow those that joked about their beliefs or those that left the group. No threats or extreme secrecy, and Applewhite and the class didn't seem concerned with disbelievers. They were certainly conspiracy theorists, but for the most part, they stayed quiet and kept to themselves, only providing information as people requested it. In the weeks leading up to the comet being closest to Earth, the members of Heaven's Gate made plans for something they called the routine. They made a video explaining the reasons for their chosen path. Their final meal together was at a nearby Marie Callender's restaurant, where they all ate the same meal. Despite popular belief, they did not cut their hair or put on specific clothes and shoes for the occasion. Androgyny and plain clothes were already part of their lifestyle and had been for a while, and this was yet another manifestation of Applewhite's internalized homophobia and disgust with sex. Between March 22nd and 23rd, the 39 members, including Applewhite, consumed applesauce and pudding mixed with barbiturates and chased it with alcohol. On March 26th, 3 days after the last wave of the class covered themselves with purple shrouds, law enforcement discovered their bodies in their San Diego mansion. This was the end of Heaven's Gate. Well, not quite the end. Considering the group closed in 1997, you might not have been expecting to see this section. Truth be told, I was expecting this one to be very short. A reminder that the members of Heaven's Gate had believed that the Earth is to be recycled in about 6 years, followed by a statement that there are no more members. As it turns out, that's not the case. I previously mentioned that their website is still up and running, but I had been under the assumption that it was left there and is no longer managed. As it turns out, I was wrong. During my research, I stumbled upon a Vice article from October of 2020 that disproves this. The website is still managed by the 4 surviving members, and apparently they are constantly rejecting potential members. Don't believe me? Check that article and the subreddit that's linked below. Their book, How and When Heaven's Gate May Be Entered, is still available on their website. You can either read it for free or contact them to pay $45 for a hardcover version. Their videotapes are also available, and there are transcripts on the page for the online book. There is also a Vimeo page, which is also linked down below, that has all of these videos. A look through the subreddit r/Heaven's Gate also proves that there are, in fact, people that have read the book, though most are, like us, more interested in learning more rather than joining. Still, there are a few that have expressed interest in actually joining the cult, and they've been promptly shut down by the Redditors that frequent the forum. Currently, there are, like I said, only 4 members left in Heaven's Gate, and though they still follow their religion, they're not recruiting. Just as the website says, the gate is closed and no one else can board. Like with all my videos concerning cults, I try to stick to a timeline and provide some background on these groups and what makes them both appealing and influential. I don't aim to pass judgment on the people that join these groups, and I also don't strive to judge the religious aspect of them, so forgive me for not including more on their lore or beliefs. If you're interested, their book is still linked on the website, and you don't have to pay for a hard copy. It's actually all free and uploaded there. Their Vimeo page with their series on their beliefs is also down below. Maybe I'll summarize them for you in the future if you're not interested in watching or reading all of that, but for now, I think we can leave it here. Heaven's Gate is certainly a cult. There's no denying that. But it's also a tragedy, one that has affected real people and their lives. While there's certainly enough to criticize about their practices, Applewhite took advantage of those in vulnerable positions and brought them down with him, and clearly his influence is still very present today. As usual, all of my sources are linked in the description below, including the official Heaven's Gate website. Feel free to leave your thoughts in the comments below, and thank you for watching.